Hello, my name is Branden Bryce. Welcome to the Veggie Gardener. Today we're starting our new video series, which is our focused crop study. We are going to talk about the classification system. Now, the classification system is kind of a headache for some people, but I really don't want that to be your case because it is very useful and informative. So what we're going to cover, or the purpose of us covering it, is because it helps us better understand the similarities between different crops without having to do a lot of studying. And so we're going to cover how plants are classified. If you find this information informative, please like, share, and subscribe. Mostly share. I'm trying to reach as many people as I can as fast as I can. All right. So within our classification system, we have about 12 classes, if I remember right. From the top, we start off with big categories. And as we go down the list, they become smaller categories. What's really going on is we clump everything in life under one category. And then as we see different differences, we clump things with similar characteristics over in one category, and with different things with different characteristics in another category. Such as the kingdom, we have the plant kingdom, and then we have the animal kingdom. And as you go down the list, those categories become smaller and smaller. And so the things that belong to the same categories share more increasingly similar characteristics. Let's put it that way. And so what that means is when we get down to these last three categories, which is what our focus is on, we can pretty much assume that all the plants within the same family share very similar characteristics. And that way we can just start making educated guesses on how to manage them if we know another plant within the same family. And so that's kind of nice because in that way we might have like 3 plants within the same family and we only know one, but then really we can just expand that out to the other two that are the other 2 plants within that same family. And even more so with genuses. So we're going to starts broad, works down to specific. The more specific, the more commonalities they have. They are going to be Latin names, so I'll throw up all of our families that we're going to look at. And you might hate me for that, but we'll go through them, don't worry. And I'll say these names so often that they'll just get stuck in your head. It'll be easy to remember because I'll just say them over and over and over and over. Maybe you might not like that, I guess. I don't know. So, all right. For Latin names, the pros and the reasons why people use Latin names is because it creates a uniform language between people within different regions of the world. If somebody in Colorado is talking to somebody in Europe or somebody in Africa or even somewhere in Asia, whether it's China or Southeast Asia or whatever, if we can use Latin names together, then we don't need to really worry about like the differences within our languages. We at least have that in common. Then we get to common names. Now, common names are used between people within the same region. And the pros of that is because they're just easier to remember. Not many people want to try and remember a Latin name for a plant. It's easier just to say like like purslane or dandelion and not use the Latin name. The problem with using a common name is when you're talking to somebody outside of your region, that plant might have a different common name. And even worse, a different plant might have the same common name, and then you're just going to get confused because you say dandelions, they say dandelion, but you're talking about a different plant. So common names have that pitfall. So that's why we use Latin names. All right, let's keep going. Why looking at the system? Find commonalities. We talked about that. Make our lives easier because, again, like if you know one plant within the same within the family, and if you know how to manage one plant in a family, and you know 3 other plants within that same family, you really know how to manage all 3 plants, more or less. All right. So family, genus, and species are what we're going to focus on. I'm going to throw up this list. It has all these family names on it. And you might not like me for that. Let me read them off for you just so you know how they're pronounced. Amaryllidaceae, Brassicaceae, Chenopodiaceae, Compositae, Cucurbitaceae, Leguminosae, Solanaceaceae, which my sister's going to name her kid after. Just kidding. We were laughing about that. Umbellifera, Graminae. Now, here's at least a stepping stone for when you start learning these scientific names, these family names. Shorten them a little bit. Amaryl, Brassica, Chenopode, Composite, Cucurbit, Legume, Sol, Umbel, Gram. That's a lot easier than remembering the full-on Latin name. Now I do have a note next to Brassica. That actually is a genus name, so don't get too confused when you start shortening it a little bit, but I mean it still works enough and people will understand what you're saying. I just want to touch on that. Brassica is actually a genus name, so when we shorten our family name, Brassicaceae, to Brassica, just remember that's, there's a little caveat there if you're going to use Brassica. I guess you can also shorten it to Brass. That would work, B-R-A-S-S. All right, and so again, I will just repeat those over and over and over until they just stick in your head, so don't worry about sitting in a corner and having flashcards or anything like that. That's not what I want you to do. So yes. All right, upcoming videos. We will take a more in-depth look at each one of these families. We will focus, of course, on the families that contain the cold season crops. And that way we can actually start planting with you having some knowledge of the crops and the families that we're actually planting. And yep, what else is on my notes? Yep, we're gonna group by management practice, as I said, group plants together. We're starting with their cold season because that's what we plant first. We won't be able to cover them all, so we're gonna cover the families that contain cold season crops first. We're gonna then plant cold season crops, and then we're gonna cover the families that contain warm season crops. And then we're able to plant our warm season crops. Our next topic is we're gonna focus our attention on the family Chenopodiaceae. You can call it Chenopode. And that is so that we start learning our family patterns, so that we can plant our crops, but also just know how to manage all of our plants. So yes, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day, guys.